It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 428. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Oof.
Grace.
Hi.
And Tam.
Yikes.
So we contemplated whether or not we should record a show because we're down 4 people. No, we're down 3 people, which means we have 4 people.
Yes.
Mostly we're recording because the weeks that we skip ends up creating a mega show that lasts over 2 hours. So maybe this will stop that from happening. Also, before the show started, I showed Tam and Ash some footage from Diablo IV. And to basically like stay out of the initial lead into this topic, Grace has had a chance to play Diablo IV. I gave my thoughts last week. Were my thoughts unfair?
Yes, your thoughts were much too kind.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I agree with your thesis that Diablo IV is just, it's not an ARPG.
Yep.
It is. I played it for several hours, struggling to articulate why it felt so bad. And I think finally settled on, you know how FF14 has sort of very slow combat, things are very deliberate, it has a lot of cutscenes and story, and like that's what you know that you're signing up for when you sign up for it.
Yeah.
That's how Diablo IV feels, but I didn't sign up for that. I want to murder a bunch of demons in a hurry. I did not sign up for long dialogue, like ponderous combat. Just, it feels very slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sluggish. And like, I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like, combat just does not resolve like I expect it to. And I think last week I said there was a time to kill problem, and I still feel like there's a time to kill problem, but it's more than that. Like, the actual combat itself feels just too, like, ponderous, I guess is a good word, like Grace said.
And
sorry, go ahead.
There's some things that I think maybe they're still a function of beta that could be addressed. Because there's also just some things, you know, I rolled a necro because of course I did, and you know, minions are always fun, but I took a couple of skills that use corpses, and I don't know, like the aiming felt very fiddly compared to Diablo 3, where if I get in the general vicinity of a corpse, it's going to explode. And it was being slow, but also is asking me to be very precise. And we'll talk about, we also tried the world boss, and we can talk a little bit more about that too. But Tam, what was your question?
I was curious. Like, I've listened to you and Belle and other people talk about ARPGs, and like a lot of times, if there's one that you don't like, that's sort of the description that's sort of the vibe I get. Like, is this Diablo the ARPG that didn't? Does it feel like the ARPGs that don't make the cut because previously Diablo was just better?
No, it doesn't feel
No,
like an
it's worse than
ARPG. It just really does not feel like the same genre of game. It could, if someone said, hey, they're making a Diablo MMO, I
Right.
would be down for that. I would sign up for that and try that and go in with that expectation. But somebody told me this was Diablo 4, and didn't tell me it was an MMO. And so I went in with ARPG expectations and they were not met. Now, it's got interesting quests. They're a little slow, but there's interesting quests. There's a lot of them for an ARPG. It has characters, it has story, it has Blizzard quality cutscenes. It's kind of an MMO.
Yeah, but that's also but like you said, like it's not what you're there for.
Yeah, like I don't know what happened with the franchise. You know, they just like lost track somehow of what the player base was coming to that game for. And they gave us a phone game that might have actually been fun, but was monetized into the ground. And
Right.
that wasn't what we asked for. And now they're giving us an MMO, and that's not what we wanted either. We just
I would
want
say
a Diablo game.
Diablo Immortal is a better Diablo than Diablo 4 is. Like, I can at least see the connective tissue of how we got to a more streamlined, actiony, like mobilized version of Diablo. Like, I can see Diablo there. It's there. And, you know, the decisions that they made other than the monetization feel pretty good. Like, it's not a bad game. Like, if I could play Diablo Immortal without, you know, whipping out my credit card, like, that would be a pretty good game. Like, that's a fun prospect. But this is just not, I don't know, like, it's, and like, I remember reading stories that they had a lot of trouble figuring out what to do for the next Diablo game, and that at one point they were working on a Dark Souls type version of Diablo. And maybe this is just a case of they really had no clue what to do for the next Diablo. They didn't know how to capture an audience. And you know, I've seen people say that maybe they're doing this deliberately to try and go after a bigger audience than the ARPG audience.
Yeah, I mean
that's fair.
That was kind of like where I just immediately went, was like, I wonder if somebody somewhere decided that it's just not economical to make Diablo.
In that case, I'm not sure why they made the game in the first place. I can believe that might be a thing. I can believe that would be true.
Yeah, I agree, Ash. Like, then why make something else that is gonna appeal and sell? And I can't imagine
Diablo
that
is the name they own. It's their big franchise. Well, one of them anyway.
It's just I don't know. It's so heartbreaking to me because I love Diablo games so much, and maybe some of it is just that I came in with the high expectations of that, and having waited and waited and waited for this game. But yeah, it I think it could be a good game, but it doesn't feel like an ARPG. And considering how that genre came about, it makes me really sad. Now it's beautiful, and it has one thing I will say for it is that there were definitely several moments where I was playing through things and really felt like the atmosphere and the sound and the design that just really evoked like the earlier Diablo games for me, and that felt good.
Yeah.
There was a really nice nostalgia hit there, but the gameplay doesn't match that.
Right. Well, and like they have done a really good job with the story. Like, the story is better than an ARPG usually is. And again, like, that's a low bar, but like,
I like the bar. I like the line you used in your blog.
I think I stole that from you once upon a time.
No, it's not from me.
Where basically, like, ARPG story is like a line that you have to keep from tripping over, because it's that low. Like, it is not a great like bastion of storytelling, but this game is doing a really good job with storytelling. Like, there's especially a quest chain where you follow around an exorcist, and that quest chain was really cool.
Yeah, that was interesting. It made me feel like it was an MMO though, because it was
Right.
this side chain of side quests with a character that you get involved with, and the people in the town. And oh my goodness, can I talk about the towns? They are really they feel very atmospheric.
Which would be
And-
amazing if
Right.
they had a damn stash tab.
Right. And, getting to anything you need to do requires wandering around a specific side of one building and going up some stairs, and my stash isn't anywhere near a vendor. And again, it feels like an MMO where they want you to feel like you're in a place and having an experience. And really what I want to do is murder demons and get loot.
Like the one thing, okay, so this is the thing about ARPG players is, generally speaking, the town is lava. You want to spend as little time in the town as humanly possible because you're not getting loot, you're not doing anything of importance while you're standing around in town. So a ideal design for the ARPG player is all of your vendors are within a foot or two of each other in the zone so that you can get in and get out. Whereas this town is beautiful, but the enchanter is block away from the bank, which is a block away from the smith, and none of the towns have any amenities required to play the game but the smith. So every time you're wanting to do anything, you're having to go back to the main hub. And so what's the point of even having towns if you're not going to have a stash in them at a bare minimum, like smith and a vendor and a stash?
I mean, the other thing is that they're shared spaces, right? So they want you to hang out in those shared space, which feels like a design from that even MMOs don't really use anymore. But
yeah,
I mean, feels like it might have been a goal.
Again, that's an MMO design.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why do I care about other people in a shared space in my ARPG? I just want to go kill demons and get loot.
I mean, I might want to do that with friends, but I don't care that much about town either way.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder how much of the problem is that Blizzard is just WoW poisoned at this point. They just don't know how to make anything else.
Well, I've thought that as well. Is there a discussion that was happened oh man, we really need to build engagement. How do we build engagement? Oh, let's do the things we did in WoW. That'll work again, right?
So speaking of things that are in WoW and MMOs, let's talk about the world boss experience. And
oh my god.
And I want to start the story with where I was at the time, because about a half an hour before the world boss is about to pop up. Now, because it's a world boss that's on a global timer, so it spawns at a specific time of day, and I was in a main story quest at the time, in a main story instance dungeon. So a nice little alert pops up and says, hey, there's going to be a world boss in 30 minutes, and here it is on your map. Great. I want to go do it. And my friend Belle is in the game, and I'm going to go hang out with him. No, I'm in this instance story quest, and it won't let me leave. There's a very nice feature that lets you exit a dungeon when you're in there. And it would not work while I was in this instant story quest. It really wanted me to finish it before I could do anything else.
And they're all that way. Every non-story instance, you can pop up a menu and say exit dungeon. And or you can click on the gate to the dungeon and it pops you right out. But if you're in a story instance, there's no way to leave it without crashing to the desktop and coming back in.
Yeah, I don't know what happens to you if you have to crash out and come back. I guess you just start over again.
Yeah,
but
you're in town and you're at the beginning of that quest, because I've had to do that because I crashed out in the middle of a dungeon.
Nice. So anyway, so there's 30 minutes until this boss spawns, and I'm in this story dungeon, and I'm pushing my way through quickly and skimming the story instead of enjoying it because hey, I want to go and make sure I get to this world boss, and I have to first explore part of the map to get there because I haven't been over in that place yet. And about 25 minutes later, I finally finished the story dungeon. It was long. There was a lot of cutscenes and people talking, and like that would have been an enjoyable 20 minutes of time, sort of.
If they
If
hadn't
I
given you an alert saying, "Hey, this is what you're missing."
right. So that was my initial frustration. It's like, just let me leave and go do another thing. I don't care if I have to restart the story dungeon. Like, that's fine. I can accept that choice. It's my choice. Let me make a choice. But no, the only way out was through. So, but I did eventually make it over there before the thing spawned, and it very much felt like standing around waiting for any world boss in any MMO ever. Bunch of people standing around. I admit that it was entertaining because about 50% of the people that happened to be in our instance all had some variation of trash or rubbish as their
it was
title.
amazing.
And that was fun.
So here's the thing, is like when you say there were a lot of people, there were like 10 people in our story instance.
Right.
And that alone really frustrated me because like the early videos that came out about Diablo IV made one of these world bosses look something akin to a Guild Wars 2 world boss, where you've got 50 plus people banging away on this boss. So like that's disappointment number one. Like
that's kind of a high bar in the genre.
It is, but the early videos showed way more than 10 players attacking the same boss. So it's some kind of limitation to their tech that they can only have 10 people in an instance node at a time.
Oof.
This boss is just, I don't know what I expected, but this boss was a bag of hit points with 3 attacks, and if any of them landed, you just kind of instantly died.
Yep.
Double oof.
It was not an exciting fight. It was a frustrating fight. Everybody who was there died many times. You could just see, like, oh, there goes that attack, and then 6 people are running back from the graveyard.
So we got it down to like the last pip that we were working on, but we failed. We failed hard. And most frustrating part about that is now if I go to my map, it shows that I have received my rewards for the week from that encounter.
Yep. Now I hope that's a bug.
I hope it's a bug too.
Because yes, we failed. So this world boss that is only spawns at set times of day. When it spawns, it only spawns for what it was, maybe 10 minutes,
15 minutes, I think. Total
10 or 15. So we hit this bag of hit points in this not fun fight for 15 minutes with these 10 people, these 10 rubbish people.
And got nothing.
And now it says that we've gotten our rewards from that for the week.
Wow.
And okay, so here's the even worse thing that happened is in order to like join a group together, I had to basically bind myself to Grace's story progression. So I joined an instance that had the stories at the steps she had the stories. And that's fine, but this boss was a demoralizing thing. And Grace needed to bail afterwards and take some distance, take a break. I tried to continue on. I am now stuck in a version of the world glued to Grace's progress. I had to leave the game to reset back to my progress. Now, after the fact, I've been told there's some button somewhere you can do to reset your map.
Why doesn't that happen automatically when your party disbands?
Right. Yeah, like so
If you had progressed, that have saved to Grace's version?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if it would have overwrote mine at that point, or if
It would
I
overwrite mine.
I don't know.
I feel like all of this sounds so weird to me because I get it. Like making an isometric action RPG is not trivial. Like, and making it good is hard. There are a lot of not good ones out there.
I mean,
But at the
ask
the
us about
most-
Last Epoch as of like a year ago.
yeah, like some of them manage to improve and get better. Some of them never do. There's a lot of them, but there's a lot of them because it's a really well understood genre. Like what you're doing in that genre is not like is honestly it's definitely a thing I enjoy now that I can play them with a controller more regularly. But it's not hard to understand what the genre is, like what people are coming to the game for. And it's sort of stunning to me that the company that invented the genre could miss the mark so hard.
So, one of the stupid things that's bothering me is this game is zoomed in so tight for an ARPG.
It does feel
And-
very weird. It makes you see how pretty everything is, but
Yep.
But
I was
If-
wondering if that's what that was.
but also,
yeah.
like when you fought the world boss, it zoomed you out to a reasonable zoom distance, like what I would expect for an ARPG. So, like, why can't I just play like that all the time? There's also significant balance problems. So right now, if you're not playing a necromancer or a sorcerer, you are choosing wrong. You should not play a barbarian. You absolutely should not play a druid. If it's your
That makes me
kink,
sad.
if it's your kink, you could probably play a rogue. But like the clear choice is the Sorc and the Necro. And they're just overwhelmingly stronger than the other classes. And apparently this has been brought up enough times that Rod Ferguson addressed it, that this is absolutely on purpose.
Wait, what?
what?
But the barbarian and the druid are supposed to grow over time, and they become strong at the end game. But they're weaker at the beginning of the game.
What?
What year is it?
I don't know. This is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Like,
What? No, seriously, what year is it?
contrast that to like Last Epoch, when by level 10 you have a fully class defining kit. You feel good by at least level 10.
And that's like 20 minutes.
Or at least
Yeah.
passable.
God, how high do you have to be on your own supply to say stupid things like that in 2023?
I mean, the last 20 years of game design apparently don't exist.
Oh, no, it's okay, folks. We did it on purpose. That makes everything better, right?
Cool.
No, that makes it way worse.
I can also do things on purpose, like not spend money on Diablo 4.
Yeah, I just a lot I don't get about this game. Like, I mean, obviously some people are enjoying it, and more power to them. Like, it tends to be people who mostly prefer MMOs, and like, sure, this is the most MMO-ish ARPG ever. But the other problem that I have, and like, I don't know, Grace, if you've encountered this yet, but like one of the selling points of this game and the supposed end game is like doing all these 114 unique dungeons. The dungeons, like, okay, so you remember how in World of Warcraft every cave was the same cave? It's not quite that, but like there's a lot of similarity between the flow of all these dungeons.
Yeah, there's definitely like this is the way that dungeons work, and I have not encountered one that works differently yet. And
Very MMO design.
Yep.
Yeah,
So you
yep.
basically like have a mini boss, and then there's some mechanic where you like go get something from wing A and bring it back to a gate, and get something from wing B and bring it back to a gate, and then the gate opens, then you fight the final boss. And like that design exists in so many of the current dungeons. And like some people are just like, well, maybe it's only this one zone that we've seen. I think that you're giving a little too much credit there. Like there's a lot of like templating going on in these dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give some benefit of the doubt because we've only really seen one area of the world, but if they had more things to choose from for these dungeons, they could have shook it up a little bit more in this zone.
Like, generally speaking, if you're going to essentially demo the game like they have here, you want to demo the best parts of the game.
No, you can't get to anything fun until you've you've
You
got-
must suffer before you have fun, because that's totally how things work now still. Not even Dungeons and Dragons is designed that way anymore.
Seriously.
And like this world boss, okay, if this is representative of what world bosses are gonna feel like you could take the worst open world boss in Guild Wars 2 and it would be infinitely more enjoyable than this.
So, like, what it sounds like, and I'm going to be a little unfair to a game that I know you like, Bell, sorry, is how I felt running Rifts in Rift, where, like, yeah, they're procedural. Yeah, they
Right.
kind of feel the same.
They were absolutely like brute force. Like, you're going to run this thing with like 6 phases and you're going to swap out some random elements between the phases, but like it's the same thing.
Yeah. But Rift didn't advertise hundreds of Rifts.
Right. Like, rifts were absolutely probably a stopgap measure to create some big open world like group content and duplicated a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Just like greater rifts and Nephilim rifts were a stopgap measure to try and put some kind of good end game into Diablo 3. But like, just, I don't know. Like, that's the other thing is like, okay, if I think back to Diablo 3, it wasn't that amazing of a game until like the fundamentals were pretty good, but like it wasn't super fun until the expansion, and then the seasons like kicked it up another notch. So
I mean, for my turning point in Diablo 3 is when they redesigned what legendary items were, which was right before the Reaper of Souls hit.
yeah.
Mhm.
The Loot 2.0 patch
Yes.
is basically
Yep.
when Diablo 3 became fun. And like, I don't know, maybe Diablo 4 will have a Loot 2.0 moment where they decide, oh crap, this isn't working. Because like, what I know of ARPG players, none of them are going to stick around in this game unless there's some magical indie game that we've not seen yet.
And that the combat feels way better by the time you get there.
Because like the people that play Diablo Immortal are mobile gacha gamers. Like, that's who plays that game. Like, ARPG players don't usually play that game. Like, some of them probably do, but I don't see that the gameplay that I have seen so far is going to attract people to do this on a seasonal basis over and over and over.
Oof.
Like, that's part of it. The other thing that worries me too is like, if you imagine starting the first season having to find all of the altars of Lilith and having to find all of these extraneous unlocks for things,
Oh, all of those
having to, all the
dungeons.
strongholds, getting the crafting patterns from running every single dungeon.
Ugh.
Yeah, no, like, it's gonna suck.
Yeah, that I hadn't even given that much thought, but oof, that's. I mean, look, there's a lot of content that you can do in a new season, and it's. Oof.
It's like, it's fun doing this the first time, but it's gonna feel like so much busy work.
I was going to say, is it better or worse than having to run the story in Path of Exile each time?
It's gonna be way worse.
It's gonna be way worse.
Oh.
You can just motor through the story in Path of Exile, and yeah, there's
You
too
kind of
much
can,
of it.
admittedly, once you know what's going on.
But there's like, imagine having to do that, but like every zone you're in, you also have to go down and do these dungeons we've been talking about, and there's like 12 of those.
Yeah, I mean, and the altars of Lilith are kind of the Korok seeds of this game.
I mean,
They're hidden all throughout the zone, and they give incremental power.
Nintendo had an opinion about Korok Siege, which is why you get a golden poop for finishing them.
But the thing is like, a seasonal character that wants to make progress is absolutely going to want to milk every bit of power that they can get, no matter how incremental it is. So you're still going to have to do all of the Lilith statues. You know, I want to say there's like 30 or so in the first area. I don't know. Like there's a bunch in the first area. So extrapolate that out across the entire game. It's gonna feel a lot like the sky scale eggs.
I'm not sure that's safe to extrapolate over the entire game because first areas get more and more attention frequently than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Is this a first area? Because you may have seen half the game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like that's all we've seen is the first area.
Yeah, it's not impossible that what you have seen is half the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am super willing to set this aside, give it a couple of years for them to figure out who this game is for, and then come back and see if it's for me.
Well, and they're also 3 months from launch. So probably not a lot of any substance is going to change in that 3 months.
Maybe they could at least give me an overlay map in those 3 months.
That one drives me insane, is the lack of an overlay.
They want you to not look at the map all the time. That's how they're going to accomplish that, clearly.
It's miserable. And the full map is not even that pretty to look at. Like, if they had given me a really gorgeous actual map, maybe I could have forgiven slightly. I'd still be mad about it. But, like, at least it would give me something pretty to look at while I was frantically hitting the escape key and swearing about the map.
Yeah, and like
that one's a weird choice.
This is another one of those like core ARPG concepts that I'm just like, hold up.
Yeah, like ARPGs are about efficiency. Like really at the end of the day, it's about efficiency and doing whatever you can to make your runs more efficient. And like,
I mean, it should also be fun along the way, or I'm not going to care about your efficiency.
Right.
But like
Yeah,
a lot of what players do is to be more efficient. Like there's a reason why people rush certain items in Diablo 2 because they were good for quality of life.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, so like the things that I feel like you really have to nail in an ARPG, and like I don't even play a lot of them. I'm just a game designer for a living, but like but you need to nail your controls need to feel responsive. You need to because you need to have fine control and also good feeling gross control across your isometric movement. So like you need to be your controls need to feel responsive. That means all of your abilities need to feel responsive. You want to hit a button and have something concrete happen. You want your progression systems to be relatively clean and clear because buildcraft is a huge part of your game, and your buildcraft needs to be absolutely on point. And feeding into that, your whole loot mechanic needs to be incredibly on point because that's half of your buildcraft right there.
That's what D3 missed at launch.
Right. And then you need the navigation and the points where you are not blowing up everything on your screen need to be as streamlined and minimal as possible. Because the two things that you want to be doing are blowing up everything on screen and build crafting.
Well, and they've also, like, we've not even gotten into this, but they kind of screwed up the itemization as well. Because, like, so items have stats on them, but they also have a number that is effectively the attack and that is effectively the defense. And bigger numbers there, generally speaking, matter more than any of the other stats on the item. So a higher item level is almost always the correct choice to equip. There's some edge cases, like if you went super hard into a Thorns build, then like you probably care way more about your Thorns number. But for the most part, the green arrow on the item means it's the thing that you want to use. And it ends up making a lot of the gearing feel just totally disposable. And I realize we're like level 25. All gearing in an ARPG prior to the end game is disposable, but like it just kind of feels like it's never really going to be interesting. And
yeah, but like even Path of Exile, like I consider the until you kill Mervale in Path of Exile, I mostly feel like it is interminable and boring, with some real minimal exceptions, because you just don't have a build online. But even there's interesting differences and choices that you can make in your gear in
Right.
that
Well,
time frame.
and Path of Exile and Last Epoch as well are games where the stats on your gear matter than the like level of your gear. Because like in Path of Exile, you end up running around in crap that you like picked up at level 20 as you're reaching the end game.
Yeah, because it was just the best
you
thing.
do want to upgrade out of that eventually, but yes.
Right. Yeah, but like, and the same thing's true for Last Epoch. Like, for ages, I was running around in a level 6 ring just because I didn't happen into something that was better.
Well, and at least also that game gives you lots of options for crafting it into
Right.
something that's fit very well for you.
And okay, so that's another frustration. Like, from what I can tell, there's no actual crafting system. Like, we're collecting
Just
leather.
the legendary thing.
Yeah. Well, just the legendary imprinting. Either the ones collected from dungeons or ones you eat from other items. And I didn't realize this.
I am going to point out that kind of is a Diablo thing.
Okay, but even in Diablo 3, you could just make a shield if you need a shield.
That's true.
I can't do that here. Like, I have to either luck into a drop or hope the vendor is selling one of the 3 things they're ever selling that's the slot that I care about.
On Diablo 3 also, if I get an item and I'm like, ooh, this weapon is great, but it doesn't have a socket on it, I can go to the enchanter and throw a socket on it, like re-roll something until it gives me a socket.
I did find that. There's a way to socket an item on the jeweler.
But is there a way to re-roll a stat?
Yeah, there is a way to re-roll a stat.
Okay.
It's on the same dude that lets you eat legendaries.
But
so while the jeweler was in the game at launch, the enchanter wasn't in Diablo 3 until Reaper of Souls.
Right. But there's like the smith doesn't let you just craft something like it's been 20 levels since I upgraded a shield. Let me just YOLO a shield and we'll go with it.
Not even gambling or anything?
There is a gambling system, but the gambling is tied to an alternate currency that you gain from doing events in the zone called O-balls. And like that is, I guess, a way to get items, but I don't know, like, I mean, we're collecting leather and ore and all these things out in the world. It just seems like there should be a crafting system, especially since it's an MMO. I mean, they did nail the cosmetic system.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, the cosmetics and character customization, I would kill for this level of character customization in an actual ARPG.
Well, I guess I should say they got part of the cosmetic system correct. The problem that they didn't get correct is you only collect the appearance of an item if you salvage the item, not consume it to turn it into a legendary shard and bestow it on another item, not sell an item. You have to salvage an item to get its appearance. That seems like a mistake. Like,
what?
Even in D3, just picking up an item gave you its appearance.
I mean, and even if you're trying to build a game economy on cosmetics, which you can do, you grant it on removing it your choice to remove it from the game economy. Like that's when you unlock it. I mean, I guess if you have a buyback system, but
anyway, I'm not sure how a lot of this stuff ever made it out of a design meeting.
I look forward to seeing what this game looks like in its first expansion.
Yeah.
If it gets one.
Alternatively, it's been really nice going back to not Path of Exile, but Last Epoch after forays into Diablo 4.
Yeah, it feels even more good.
Exactly. Like, it is better by comparison.
It feels so good. And like, I'm running around on a necro, just like I was running around on a necro. My skeletons look cooler, and I can tell them where to go.
Like, I don't know how the skeletal golems in Last Epoch look infinitely better than the one in Diablo 4. Because I got the golem finally, and it is this messy abomination looking thing. I don't know. If I had not been gifted a copy of this game, I would not have bought this game.
Yikes.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this game for like over a decade. I will not be buying it. Not at launch. Go play Last Epoch. It's super fun.
Yep.
It is actually an ARPG.
So, Triangle Strategy.
Or
The
So-
next
Square
game
Enix
in
can't
the
name a
long
strategy
line
RPG.
of project names as games.
Triangle Strategy it is a stunningly stupid name for
For what I hear, a quite excellent game.
a video game. Yeah, well, and that was the thing, was it's good. Like I don't know how to play it. And have you had we've talked previously about the experience of having a game where you feel like you are making decisions and they might be incredibly wrong ones and you have no idea if that's true? That's Triangle Strategy's overworld map for me. Because otherwise, it feels like Final Fantasy Tactics, and it's really clean, and I really like that part about it. And it's got, much like the original Final Fantasy Tactics, especially once it was translated better, it's got a really interesting story. Like I'm interested in, like, the broad strokes of what's going on are that there are 3 major nations in this in this continent that have differing like natural resources that they all want, and previously they had a giant war over it, and that ended with a truce. And there's basically, like, you've got the religious zealots in the desert that have a bunch of salt, and then you've got 2 other factions that have some other stuff that I don't really remember, because the crux of the game is there's a new salt mine not in the desert, and this could spark a war. And, like, okay, I follow broadly what is going on, and it's told from the perspective, I think, of this sort of minor noble, very, very FF Tactics cues, but this sort of minor noble who is, like, meeting his betrothed for the first time. Like, the tutorial mission is your group all rolls up and there's some bandits hassling this person that you're here to meet. But there's just a bunch of interesting characters. And the way the overworld is structured is I've got a map, and I've got events on that map that I can go do. But it seems like each time I select one, like, time moves forward. So it's like I'm choosing which mission I'm doing, and I have no idea what's happening in the missions I'm not doing.
I am told that this is a game that does not fully tell you its story until you have completed the playthrough.
Gotcha. So, like, I'm just not getting story beats.
Like, yeah, there's just stuff you cannot see on your first time through the game.
All right.
The problem that you're describing is my problem with the non-combat segments of Persona games.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be choosing. Which class should I go to? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I remember feeling the same way about Persona games. Like, wait, what am I supposed to do? I guess I'm going to do
similar,
things that
yeah.
I feel like I want to do. And in this case, I'm like, I don't know. The first mission I selected had some characters I find interesting. I'm going to keep doing the missions that involve those characters.
And I get story that evolves over multiple playthroughs is a thing that a lot of people enjoy. But, like, there's a lot of times where I have no interest in playing a game more than once. So those type of games always kind of feel bad because I know I'm just going to miss stuff.
Yeah. But other than that, I really enjoy the sort of structure of things. Like, it definitely has this type is good against this type is good against this type. But also, like, the various, it is a much more mobile game than in terms of like how your battlefield evolves is way more dynamic than a lot of these games can end up. Like a problem that I tend to have with like I mean, I like Fire Emblem, but a lot of times with Fire Emblem, it's got the miniatures game problem where everybody meets in the middle and you slug it out until people are dead. Either you win or you didn't. And like they try to mix that up with missions, but mostly I don't feel like I feel like the only thing that is forcing movement around a map are enemy positions, like where they spawn. And they either stand where they are and shoot me, or I run at them, or they run at me. And there's a lot more interesting tactics going on. Like the first time I had an NPC archer run away after getting punched, and then have another person get in the way to block me it was just a cool moment, and it didn't make the game harder. I mean, I guess it made it harder in that I had to actually like use a tactic, but it wasn't like I'm just getting crushed by the AI tactics. It was just that made the battle that much more interesting, and I had to choose like, okay, do I let that archer continue to plink away, or do I go the long way around? Do I move somebody from somewhere else on the battlefield who's fast to chase down that archer, or whatever the case may be? And like that was it was more interesting than I was expecting. They also just gave me a real healer right off the bat.
Always appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Tactics Ogre also does this, but Final Fantasy Tactics sure didn't.
Nope. And when you get one, you're like, wow, this is strong. This is a game changer. I should have done this way sooner. But yeah, I haven't gotten like super deep in it. It's specifically been the game I'm playing while waiting for the baby to go to sleep. And now that she's going to sleep much more readily, I'm not playing as much. But because hey, turn-based. If something happens, I can put it down in a moment. It's worth a lot to me. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's been a while since I've played a good game like this, and I appreciate that it's not. I appreciate that it's hitting all the right notes. I think the last one of these that I tried to play, I got real frustrated because it was like, this is going to be punishingly difficult right out the gate. Let's go. And I'm like, I don't even understand your core mechanics. Like, of course you can punch me in the face when I don't know how your game is played. That's not hard.
Adepticon Reveals.
So this weekend is Adepticon, a minis game tournament that I have no intention of ever attending. But it is also like one of the biggest ones in the country. It is, or in the world, really, if I'm honest. It's probably third or fourth after Gen Con and the one in Germany whose name I can never remember. But anyway, it's a big like series of minis games tournaments, kind of a big deal. But mostly what for me it means is a bunch of games companies are revealing their new stuff. There's a new Catalyst Game Labs seems to be as good a caretaker of the BattleTech license as they aren't with Shadowrun. They're taking old terrible sculpts of battle mechs from the 80s and like redoing them in plastic and making it so that you can actually get a hold of BattleTech minis and play BattleTech, and they're simultaneously supporting the version of the game that's existed since 1984 with minimal changes, as well as their newer, hey, would you like something with less crunch version? And they're mostly doing this through a series of really successful Kickstarters. I feel like crowdfunding is a really good way to get a niche product out the door, and I think that it's kind of coalescing into, if you've got something that's niche but has passionate people, crowdfunding may be your way to go.
I mean, Hasbro is trying it. They're just not doing a good job.
I feel like there's a component that has to be there in that you already have something lined out to do the fabrication of said product.
Yes. And they definitely do. Like they stood up some BattleTech back in, mid 2010s. They can print minis and so forth. And now they're just expanding like crazy. They have a beginner box. They've released 3 starter boxes, and they're releasing their I don't know if it's a starter box, but it's their 4th large box. And they've hit a great price point. And you can just get the materials that you need to play all in one set of packet. Well, almost all of the materials you need to play, except for the ability to figure out how to make lists. But that's a broader BattleTech problem. It's not a very accessible game in some ways. But their new one is apparently much better at that, and you get all the cards that you need. But their crowdfunding campaign this time around is at like 4.5 million in 2 days, 3 days, something like that. So there is appetite for it.
Yeah, this was a surprising level of interest in this. Well, surprising to me anyway.
I mean, it's surprising to them. I don't know how their previous campaigns did, but did their previous? Now I'm curious. Not that well. Yeah, something their last. And okay, so for comparison, Clan Invasion,
The mix a lot of people care about.
which yeah, that's a bunch of mechs that a lot of people care about, and notably, like, everybody who is into Mech Warrior games back in the day is probably thrilled about Clan mechs. That was 2.5 million total, and this one is 4.4 million with 25 days to go. It's just like, what? They've clearly been a good caretaker of this franchise. And honestly, at least from what I've seen, I'm not sad about. Like, they have cool stuff. They do a good job of managing. It's like a good series of mechs, a good series of. I mean, it's not even just the game. They have been spearheading publishing of books, republishing old books. They're doing a graphic novel. But it's interesting to see this, like.
It was also them who worked out new designs for the Unseen, right?
Yes.
To get that out of licensing hell.
Yes. And that may also be part of it, is that they are doing a lot of work to get this out of the absolute nightmare licensing hell that they have been in. But yeah, it's neat to see them be just successful beyond their wildest imagining, because they're doing a pretty good job with it. Much like the other big reveal from 40K, where 40K has been working very hard to repair its image. And I feel like Bell is gonna perk up on this one. Guess who's getting a model to be playable in 40K?
Zotes?
I mean, fair dues. That would be even more bonkers. No, Lionel Johnson.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Like,
that figure looks crazy.
Right? This is a character that they have been writing about since like 1991.
Yeah, it's got to be somebody's self-insert character. It has to.
Yeah. And has just been, I mean, has had a presence, but has not been present in anything that's going on for literally 30 years, at least. And now is like, yeah, he's coming back. Why? Nobody's really sure yet, but we're going to find out, I guess.
It doesn't really shock me that much, since they did the whole Primaris Marines thing.
Yeah.
Because that was another character that you didn't think would ever show up.
Right. Well, and I think part of it is just they're actually moving a narrative forward.
Well, it seems like they're actually trying to differentiate between Space Marine chapters.
Also this.
Like, in a meaningful way, other than these are the gray ones and these are the red ones. And, maybe you're an edgelord and you want the darkish green ones.
Yeah, it's true.
Like I think the Dark Angels are cool.
Oh yeah. No, I like
Space Marines with swords, sure.
look, I was raised Catholic. I like iconography. They've got iconography in spades. They have a pipe organ on a like a freaking hovercraft. It's absolutely hot nonsense.
Or instead of Gothic architecture, did you really like the Baroque? How about some Blood Angels?
Right. But also in the meantime, they've been super aggressively rooting out kind of the old gross parts of the hobby. They recently did a sweeping upgrade to the Imperial Guard model line, and their heavy emphasis on the Imperial Guard model line was having just a huge diversity of guard models. Like almost every type of person you can think of is represented somewhere in the more recent guard releases. And it's super cool. And they're super frank about it. Like you see their paint jobs, like this is their studio paints. Like that person, they have recognizably different types of brown people, which, as somebody whose skin tone is usually not reflected in anything, is somewhat surprising. But also they replaced their like the top tier like general or whoever is, oh, I forget her name, something Creed, but she's just like a huge burly, just this huge burly woman, and just the model is awesome.
Like, I think on some level they're also having to fight battles that they never fought before. Like, because back in the day, you really had like the Citadel paint line, and you had like, I think even back then you had Vallejo, which was like really expensive at that point, and then you had Apple Barrel, and like those were your choices.
Yeah.
And now there's a dozen or so really good paint lines.
And there are a lot of people sculpting.
I mean, like there's a whole 3D printed Space Marine alternative line that I've loosely followed, and they look amazing.
Oh yeah.
If I ever played again, I would probably try and get somebody to print up that army because it looked amazing.
And yeah, I mean, it forces them to sort of up their game. The other side of that being the other game that I haven't played in a while but watch were Infinity's reveals. And Infinity is currently a little bit of a mess. They've let themselves get a bit bloated, and they're definitely trying to branch out as a company into other games. And I'm very skeptical about this. Their forays so far haven't been super impressive, but they want to do a fantasy game. And they want to do their big reveal for Adepticon was a new Infinity book, which I'm a little bleh on. I understand that in a minis war game you need to have conflict, but if your minis war game is all about cyberpunk Black Ops conflicts, having the giant alien empire that's going to completely destroy humanity as a faction kind of messes things up. It sort of makes all of the internecine arguments seem pointless. But that's the part that's interesting. I don't know. But anyway, their new one is Fleet Battles. And I don't think there's been a good Fleet Battles game since like Star Wars Armada.
I was gonna say, a lot of people like Star Wars Armada.
And I mean, I like a good Fleet Battles game.
For the time, I really liked the Babylon 5 one.
Oh yeah, that's the one that was my favorite. All like 7 of us who played it.
Yeah, super expensive models because there weren't a lot of them printed.
Right.
Not printed, but cast, because they were all metal if I remember correctly.
Yep. Still, Babylon 5 still has the coolest single pilot fighter in, I think, all of sci-fi.
And the funny thing about that one is it was specifically designed around the types of shapes that Lightwave, I think it was Lightwave, could do better than, other things. So like it was specifically designed around the types of things that you could build with Lightwave 3D.
It looks good. Babylon 5 has some great ship designs. The giant fish is the other one. Minbari cruiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of looked like, I don't know, like they were definitely aquatic looking. I don't know what kind of fish, but
some tropical fish, definitely.
I mean, I was an edgelord at the time, and I think I was playing a shadow fleet.
Yeah, yep.
That is the edgelord option.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I obviously play a lot of minis games. It's interesting seeing that swirl of just random thing. Like there's just a bunch of stuff happening, and yeah, I'm excited to see where some of this goes, especially because the other thing that Games Workshop announced is the new edition of 40K, which they're actually just openly calling 10th edition finally.
What did they not call ninth edition?
No.
They did call 8th that.
They did call 8th that, which I think, but like they flip flop back and forth between calling the editions an edition or like letting you know what number they're on, which is just so weird to me. But
I mean, like that never made any sense because the players refer to it as 8th edition, 9th edition.
Yeah, it's just unnecessarily confusing. But yeah, it's neat seeing where they go with it and getting what's this called kind of the next year of what to expect out of plastic and metal. Actually, there's not much metal anymore. Plastic and resin.
Catalyst doesn't have the rights to make metal minis.
Yeah, God.
That's actually still another company.
Yeah, still another company that is just desperately trying to remain relevant.
I mean, they still make stuff that Catalyst, as of so far, has not.
Right.
The original metal sculpts weren't good, though.
Right. That's the problem. Like, the Catalyst sculpts are so much better.
Like, I remember back in the day, we used to play with Micro Machines Z-Bot figures because the sculpts for like BattleTech was just awful. Like, I mean,
I was not into
Z-Bots
BattleTech, but I did have some of the Z-Bots.
The Z-Bots weren't the best things in the world, but they looked better than the BattleTech sculpts. And you could also, like, pick those up dirt cheap. Dirt cheap compared to mini prices, but...
Well, yeah. Man, I remember those. Those are so cool. But yeah, the other thing that I think is really neat is that, and I'm not totally sure how this is working, but the sculpts, the actual plastic sculpts, are identical to the ones that show up in the video games now. And I'm not surprised that that's the case because they're representing the same thing, but they're actually almost perfect. Which is just really neat because if I've been playing a video game and I'm really into this mech and then I can get the exact same thing in plastic, that's really fun. Versus something that's like called the same but doesn't look the same.
Well, and you won't have to like carefully pin it together either.
Yeah, well, yeah, you don't actually have to assemble any of these at all.
That was the problem I had with large metal minis anyway. It was just the fighting gravity.
Yeah, it's a mess. I was once a metal miniature snob, and I am no longer a metal miniature snob.
Well, the problem that you ran into too was like there was so much variance in a metal like piece that popped out, and so you get things that wouldn't fit together right, and you'd have to like green stuff it together, and
you look at it funny and it falls apart.
Yep. Inevitably, they were either top heavy or back heavy.
Yeah. Well, if I drop a mini, I actually can't remember the last time I dropped a mini and it broke.
Whereas that was just commonplace with like any kind of a pewter metal sculpture type thing.
Oh yeah, I mean I've had minis break at tournaments because I slid them across the table a little bit too hard.
Or weapons bending.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in the day with like Ral Partha miniatures. That's a name from, the Annals of Time. Like, they were so soft.
Oh, man, I fought some of those things in my day.
Well, because that was what all of them were. Like, they were the big dog prior to Citadel. Like I had a bunch of Marvel miniatures from their lines, and all the official D&D stuff was Ral Partha, but it was such a soft metal. Like it was just tap it lightly and you'd bend like things out of recognition.
Ugh.
But I want to say they were also like something weird, like 10 millimeter or 8 millimeter. Like they were small. I looked up the 3D model vendor that I was thinking of, Atlan Forge. They have like polar bear space marines and all kinds of wild stuff.
Oh man, the miniatures people made in the like 80s and 90s were wild time.
Oh, they have a page on my minis factory.
Yeah.
I shouldn't know about this. This is not a thing I should know about.
Oh, they're amazing. They have like these like mounted infantry on polar bear kind of things.
Quote unquote space knights.
Yeah, yeah. Like one of their factions is like all these Aztec looking space marines. Anyway, that's probably a show. Any final thoughts?
I'm sad about Diablo 4.
I am too.
I am 3.
Like Diablo is the franchise from Blizzard that I care the most about, and man, it feels real bad to be disappointed.
Does that make Overwatch the current most successful franchise?
Oof.
Because I don't think Overwatch 2 has been that well received.
I mean, it also didn't have the things in it that they said they was going to have, so...
I mean, this has been kind of a long line of these from Warcraft Refunded.
Ouch.
A lot of product lines that didn't quite deliver what people were expecting. And like I was listening to a thing the other day talking about how I think it was from Preach, who is a pretty big WoW YouTuber, that he thinks that there was just permanent damage done with Shadowlands that can't be recovered because like two bad expansions in a row for World of Warcraft meant people looked for other options or were more open to other options and are now playing, Final Fantasy or Guild Wars or whatever other game that they went to, haven't seemed to be that interested in going back. Like if this does not land with core Diablo players, I don't know.
I guess they better hope it lands with a bunch of other people.
Yeah, hopefully it lands with someone else. Like hopefully the people that enjoyed Lost Ark are really interested in switching over to Diablo.
I mean, or the old World of Warcraft players who are soured on WoW, but they want to get back through some other means. I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out, since we got basically 3 months until launch. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.